Tell me how you learn. Das ist das Motto unserer Videoserie, in der Menschen ihre persönlichen Erfahrungen, Tipps und Einsichten zum Thema Lernen mit uns teilen.
Hi Martin, we are in Copenhagen today in your studio. You are a weaver, you're an artist. What made you start weaving?
I know it's about a learning process too, and my learning process started being a kid and a teenager in the 70s. It was such a vibrant decade, and I feel very fortunate that I happened to be born to be a teenager in that period. There was so much freedom of mind, experimentation. There was Miles Davis' electrical period in the 70s, which is the most incredible music I know, natural colors and so on. There was a romantic period, and I completely became part of that romantic period. I was very fascinated and inspired by textile. I got a small loom when I was 4, and the fact that you with threads, manipulating threads could produce a fabric. That was a kick for me, and it was pure fascination of the craft, no art into it.
Being a 4-year-old and getting the very first loom, and it's lasting until you are 60 plus now, what still gives you the kick out of this? And what did you learn during this entire period? I mean, there was a very conscious decision.
Very unconscious, and very much a product of free upgrowing by my parents and being part of this period. It was not very conscious. Now people focus on career, they talk about career and strategy of life. We didn't use that kind of words, it was much more impulsive. I felt like it, I became aware that there were workshops in Copenhagen that accepted apprentices. And because I was so interested, fascinated, I learned the trade very fast and had to find out what to use this trade for, or this craft. And then became my second interest. I mixed it with my second interest, which was art. My father went with me on museums when I was a kid, and the artist had this, talking about artists, had this glow, incredible glow, that they were untouchable. They belonged to another sphere that I didn't belong to. Growing up in the province, from a middle-class family. But through the back door, I became part of that scene. Not on a design school, not at the Academy of Fine Arts, but in a workshop where the master really, she was the hardest one at that time when I joined the workshop. So I was very fortunate to be part of her artistic process,
A loom, a weaving workshop.
A weaving workshop, yeah.
So, but what kept you going?
What tricks me, and it's something that has shown, it's not an intellectual focus, but what tricks me are compositional that are accidental, that are non-reflective. Of course, they present themselves in nature, but also in a cultural landscape. Like when craftsmen, they repair a brick wall with plaster. Suddenly there's a pattern that they're not aware of. It has become like this by coincidence. And my eyes are then the artist's eyes. I shoot it with my camera because it has an innocence which I cannot create intellectually. And this innocence, of course, when it has become through me and the computer, it becomes thought, and it becomes a composition that I made. It becomes culture somehow. But the origin is this innocence, which is impossible to create as a human.
So when you have this idea, or when you have the sketch to finally then create a tapestry, I mean, these are huge things. It's not a small kind of tapestry you're doing. They are in huge dimensions. How long does it take you? What do you learn during this process from putting the first thread on the loom and then finally you have the finishing product a year and a half later? What does it mean to you to have done it, to have succeeded?
The sketching process lasts between 14 days and months. Sometimes the sketch crystallize itself quickly. Sometimes it takes a while. Also depends on the size. When I decide to interpret one of the sketches into textile, there's a whole process going on, like dyeing the yarns, which I do during the whole weaving process, because I cannot predict. It's very much a state of mind when I do the thing. It's a constant interpretation of the sketch, and it's bringing the sketch alive, you know. And the reason people ask me, how can you stand working so many months on the piece? I'm never bored. I even sometimes can't take my weekend off because it's running in my head, and it's a huge satisfaction. And there is this carrot in the end, you know. Then finally, when I'm finished, I can unroll the thing. I can only see 30 centimeters at a time before it disappears behind a beam, you know. So it's like working in the blind also. So it's a fever weaving, and the reward is to see it when it's cut off from the loom. And usually I'm happy with what I see, but I'm also finished with the image. You know, I see does it have this glow, this depth, this impact, you know, that I wanted. Mostly they have, but also it's out of my body, and I need to go to a new project because I've worked so long for each one.
So what are the biggest challenges you see in creating a new tapestry, or while you are within the process?
The challenge always is to make a tapestry that is worth making. That is not just repeating what I'm good at, but stretching my technical skill and also my artistic skill. Otherwise, I would become bored. You know, I can only keep my spirit if there's a chance of failure, and that means the compositions I try. That is an intellectual thing. I try each time I make a sketch to avoid the perfect composition, because that I can do now. I know how to make a perfect composition, which in my terms, for me, in my terms, that means it rests, and it doesn't have a wrong key into it. Now I'm not so afraid of having wrong keys, because it makes it more vibrant, and it makes it possible to be understood in different ways, you know. So I'm less and less afraid of mistakes or wrong parts in the composition, or color contrast which are odd, you know, and not pleasant to the eye.
How do you learn?
By doing.
As simple as this?
Yes, and by risk. It's a matter of risk, of course. When the works take so long time, it's a risk each time. I usually tell people, well, each tapestry is a risk, because it's all. You can also see mood changes. If I have had a 14-day break and I continue a forthgoing tapestry, you can see it, you know, as a change in mood. You know, that's why I usually work in a feverish flow, to avoid two visual breaks within this flow. It's not like a painter that can just paint on top. This is like a printer, you know, a very slow printer.
In which way does the digital help you?
It helps me in the sense that is my sketching tool. My finished tapestries are in a way digital, because if you are very close to them with a hanger on the wall and go very close, it's like pixels, you know. And the further you step back, the more it crystallizes out as an image. And if you have the right long distance, 8 or 10 meters, suddenly a glow occurs in the surface, because it doesn't reflect the light like a painting. It's made of because of the structure, the tactility, it's made out of 1,000 small lights and shadows, you know, which makes an incredible glow, and even enhances the feeling of three-dimensionality. I knew that from the beginning, but my big exhibition 1 year ago, when it was really possible to have a huge distance, I was taken by this glow, how much it means, you know. And that is the most important difference between other art forms and textile, that if it's a good piece of textile, it has this extra quality.
So being a weaver, standing at the loom there, it's kind of lonely kind of work, right? Don't you miss a team once in a while?
I envy musicians that create art together in the minute. You know, I envy this cooperation that musicians have, and I envy a film crew that you create an art piece together and you have this dialogue, constant dialogue. That I envy. But when I've said that, I like my own process. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done this for so many years. And I have to be my own team, you know, which I can't be, you know. But in another life, I would have been a composer, and the third life, I would have been a film director, you know. But I ended up being a weaver.
What is the learning you take away from an exhibition you had?
Confidence in myself. Very simple as that. Because when I mounted the exhibition in Rundetårn in downtown Copenhagen, I had only seen a tapestry with 4 meter distance and only one in one room and another in another room. I've never seen them together. I played with them in a model, you know, and that felt good. But when they were mounted, the third or the fourth hanging in the period of mounting it, I've said, well, this is an exhibition I would like to go and see. And that's the best I can do, you know, and that's what that meant. I was ready to receive my audience with a straight back. They can think whatever they want. This gives me a kick, you know, and that's the biggest satisfaction.